Yes.
The future. Is Carlee Russell gonna pop out
And explain?
Is she gonna just be like...
I mean...
I think even if she did, no one would care.
I think people would care. But I think also it just kind of says like...
For like a week.
Yeah, no, because then if jurisdiction now changes based on her actions, people will care. Because like now if you make any false claims or you don't have a full story or if you don't have whatever, right? How is that going to now affect future people when, say, they seen something and it wasn't something that they thought it was?
Of course.
Or
we used all these resources and we need that back.
Exactly. You know? So it's like the same thing where it's like if you pull the fire alarm here in Canada, Toronto specifically, if you pull the fire alarm, you got to pay, I think, a fee of like $800. Or there's a fine, I think, even up to $2,000 that you have to pay if it was not done with reason, purpose, or X, Y, and Z. So, yeah, that's now where the state is regulating your behavior now. So, her allegedly calling the police about a sighting of a child who was partially clothed and just, yeah. How is that now going to change? How are these people going to change the regulation of how 911 is being used and called?
Based off the interview that they had, they said that they did what they did, but I don't think it's going to change. Well, certain people, I guess in social media, because people are flighty on social media. Mm-hmm. They be like, oh, we can't, you know what I mean? So people are just flighty like that. But I think for police officers and stuff like that, who knows? They might not take it seriously, but I think some might still, because
you can't.
You don't want to get caught up in something that was a real thing.
Yeah, you don't want to make that mistake. So
and he did the information, right? Like you said, and also if that police officer, based off he's like, I'm going in with facts. I think he's gonna do that with every single case, because he went he broke it down to the T. To the you just listen to it, it's like, oh, you're a idiot.
Yeah.
And that's one thing. When they do an investigation like that, it's crazy.
Did they follow up with the people? Like,
I think they did, but like they also said they're still doing an investigation.
Because we can't say no, she wasn't, and we can't say these abductors, if she was abducted, kidnappers, that they weren't smart enough to like
feed the kidnapper the same cheeses that they bought though.
Hey man, when you eat a lot of those things, your mouth get dry.
Okay.
You get cotton mouth, man.
Okay, I mean,
are you saying that she was high?
That was a floating theory before.
That could be.
That is a wild high. What the hell? Whatever you were smoking, stop.
Fentanyl.
Oh, there's one thing you mentioned. Oh, whoa, jeez. There's one thing the officer mentioned that he didn't go all the way. But besides like the search terms that she used, she had other stuff on the phone that was of concern. But he didn't reveal what was that. So,
I mean, the other part
what does
too.
that mean?
Yeah, the other part too in the situation, if say for example it was a elaborate lie, let's say false information, what if this is a case of mental health, and maybe she's having a psychiatric break. Maybe this was real in her mind, but in reality, it's not real. Like, us.
Damn.
We're not seeing this child that she's seeing.
Here's the problem, and this is a scary thing with like mental health and like using it to say, like, I feel like if we continue to use, like, you know what it is? It's like when you hear something happen and it's like someone was drunk, and it's like, well, the charges are lower because that individual was drunk. Because they weren't themselves or whatever. But then mental illness, I'm not saying that it can't be, but like when it's used, that word is used a lot, I feel like it like waters down the concept.
The accountability.
It's like yeah. You know what I mean?
I'm not saying no. But I'm not saying no. But it's just, and I completely understand what you're saying. But I definitely can say, like, after meeting a few people in my life or whatnot, when you start seeing how some people, they just cannot gather foresight or consequences, or their reaction to certain things are really like very negative, where it's like traumatic, or their ways of dealing and handling stress are very traumatic. It's like there's no talking to them.
Because they said she was in med school, so in med school is usually intense.
Yeah, that
And
could be
working a job.
stressful,
So
right? And who knows, maybe she was fatigued. Maybe there was a kid that was actually running around in the hospital that she was working at. Maybe they passed away. Maybe she's dealing with grieving and grief,
Yeah, you just don't know.
right? So you like,
Was she at the hospital or was she at spa?
no, she spa part-time and then full-time school, working as med school. Mm-hmm. So like studying it's intense program.
right? So it's like, you know, how many sleepless nights is she having or experiencing? How many days where she has to continue to like bounce back? Like these are all what ifs, obviously.
Yeah.
And then again, these what ifs are still giving her grace. Because what if it was a true situation that happened? Even though the police are saying the facts of what they found so far, we don't know what actually happened from here, there.
Fortunate.
Yeah.
Well,
But timing is everything, you know? That's crazy.
Like I was saying, like timing, like I think the story will wrap up by by Tuesday, unless something like new happens.
Information.
But like when we covered Jussie Smollett, that was like a month, 2 month, like
because they started breaking it down to the T.
like that was a
They started
long
breaking it
case
down.
with
If at
Jussie.
any point they do find this redhead person who's balding in the middle, whoa!
You know,
That would be a
that's
treat.
gonna remind me of Gerald's game. That you ever watch Gerald's game?
Yes.
When the Moonlight Man,
The who? What
the
man?
Moonlight Man on the end when they went to the court, because there's this man. Yo, that was a whole madness.
That movie is crazy.
Repeat for the viewers what
Gerald's game.
Gerald's game.
Yes.
It's about the girl. It's about a woman that was
Who's hearing impaired.
some. Is it the one, the kinky one? That's
Yeah.
the- yeah. So
But she's partially,
I just realized, yeah, she's partially there.
she has
Yeah, you're right.
hearing
I
issue.
didn't even think about it.
Yeah.
So she was in. This woman was basically in a kinky thing with her affair,
Yes.
Right.
and what happened is she was all strapped
That
into
movie-
the bed.
Okay.
Yeah.
The man
we
caught a heart
talked about
attack.
Pod before, yeah.
Yeah. But there's a man named Moonlight that she thought she was delusional. Mm-hmm. But there's a crazy man named Moonlight just came there standing there in the middle of the thing, strong brawler thing. Mm-hmm. But then she went to the court case to see the man, and the man seeing like, oh, you're back, my Moonlight. Ping! Just broke the handcuffs. Mm-hmm. Imagine you being the cop in that situation, seeing the thing broke the handcuff, like some brawler man just broke the handcuffs you just arrested. Yeah.
Wow.